Excuse me, sir. They're here.
Hello.
I'm Rachel. This is Stephanie. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, that's Sarah.
And then Ophelia.
Hello.
Hello.
They will be making appearances. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, never apologize. Oh, one of our cats will probably hop onto the desk because she just is like an attention hoe. Like she just loves all the
Yeah,
attention.
that's this one. I think at least 2 times during the interview, she's just probably gonna be at our face. So
Yep. She is so needy. I mean, oh my gosh, this little lady here. She just like 15 times a day, she'll just like jump up and she's like, I need hugs immediately.
Mhm.
She's a good co-regulator though.
Yeah.
I believe it. Oh my God, I am so honored and like to even like share like virtual space with you.
Oh,
Thank
we
you.
are so honored too. Is that I'm sorry, I'm totally ADHD.
Oh no, yeah.
Is it a dog?
No, that's Luna.
Oh, look at that baby lady.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't sure if she was real or an animal at first. I did have to address it.
Yeah, are you gonna do your old man
Perfect
cough?
angel.
Yeah, just get your old man cough out of the way now.
We'll give him just a moment then.
Yeah.
There we go. Edit out. We're good.
Oh, sweetie pies.
So it's Bryden. Are we saying
Bryden, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yay, it's so nice to meet you in person, Bryden. We're big fans.
Oh, likewise. Oh God, likewise.
And congrats on graduating.
Oh my God. I know. Commencement was recently, and then once I finish like doctoral project in August, and I'll like officially graduate. But I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Good. It's nice to be done.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you start practicing OT?
I started, holy buckets, like January of 2019. Yeah.
It's all just
It's
sweet
about the
baby
same
OT is
time.
basically the same time for us too.
Yeah,
started
we're still
August
like,
2019.
oh my gosh, okay. So we're all like just still, I don't know. I still consider myself like a baby OT.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
For sure. Baby OT is doing big things though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're on the TED Talk.
Oh, oh, it was fun. Catherine is a fantastic co-writer and co-host. Yeah, it was honored to even do it with her. She's a baller.
You guys both, I mean, you put it like everything in words that we couldn't even find. Like every word that you guys spoke, we're like, yep, that's exactly, yep. And in just such an eloquent way. And I really appreciate the way you summarized it at the end too. Of like, so what does this actually mean? Right? What's the quick
Yeah.
So really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
So we are notorious for just kind of going all over the place. We do have our questions that we sent you. So
I am an ADHDer, so I do very well. I do very well with just.
Okay, well, fantastic.
I'm probably gonna bring Bronson upstairs real quick.
Is he?
Yeah, no worries.
He's just coughing a lot, so
Okay.
I just don't want coughs.
Do you see she keeps throwing this ball at us too?
Yeah, she's like,
That's so sweet.
Did you want to say hi? Are you going to? Yes. So you're in Minnesota?
Minnesota, yeah.
Minnesota, born and raised?
Born and raised. Where are you both located?
We're also in Midwest. We're in Michigan.
Oh my goodness, Michigan is such a beautiful state. Whereabouts in Michigan?
We are currently in Flat Rock, Michigan, which is
like 15 from Detroit, like 15 minutes out.
Oh, okay.
And Toledo, so it's like southeast, very southeast Michigan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I live just outside of Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Oh, I love that.
Whereabouts in Minnesota are you?
We live in a tiny rural town called Buffalo, Minnesota.
Okay.
It's about like 40 minutes west of the Twin Cities.
Okay. which is Minneapolis. Is that the Twin Cities?
Yeah,
Okay.
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
The
Yeah.
Twin Cities, St. Paul. Okay.
No worries.
Good. Very good.
Are you originally from there then, or?
Yeah, I grew up in another tiny different small town. And then my husband Zach, he actually grew up in a even tinier, like it was a dairy farm, like town of like 100 people. Yeah.
My other BFF is from Minnesota. She was right outside of Fargo. I'm trying to remember Litchfield. She's from Litchfield, Minnesota.
Okay, that's by Warren, which is where
Oh.
Zach grew up. That's insane.
Yeah. So I know all the little Minnesotan like oofda and like all the little things from her.
Duck, duck, gray duck.
Yeah.
No duck, duck, goose nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. So I've picked up some of those along the way. So you might hear them from time to time.
I was gonna say I'm pretty hard and true. I grew up in Chicago, so I get a lot of the Chicago.
Zach loves Chicago. I actually have never been. I've never visited, and Zach has always talked about how he's like, Beebs, like Chicago is like the one city where I feel like that you and I would really like we would love. So he really wants me to like visit it. He loves Chicago.
Yeah, it's kind of like that fast-paced like New York, but not as mean, but it's also not fake as like LA. It's that happy middle.
Sure.
We'll tell you to your face if we don't like you, but also we'll at least try to be nice in the beginning. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
For sure.
true Midwest hospitality though, and with the big city vibes.
Yeah. You don't even realize like how strong that Midwest vibe is until you leave the Midwest and you're like, my gosh. But you know what? And I'm sorry to go on a quick tangent here,
You're
but
totally okay.
I've often thought about how like the different subcultures within different areas could impact masking, right? So like in Midwestern, where you're expected to be like very friendly and very on, it's like very taxing. Whereas like you can go to New York City and just kind of like
That
the mask
yes,
off, not as
especially, I don't know if it's a Midwestern thing or if it's a Minnesotan thing, but one thing that is really hard for me is small talk. Like when like I love my colleagues, I think they're so kind. I think they're amazing at what they do. And like how I don't know if there's just I even told Zach. Zach is also neurodivergent and how he does a much better job with it than I do, but how you'll walk in the hallway, you'll pass a colleague, they won't even look at you and they'll say like, oh, how's your day? They'll just walk right by you and you're like, and it's like, I'd rather have you just not say anything to me at all. Or like those kind of like, oh, how are you doing? And it's like, they're asking you a question but they're not asking it as an actual question like they want you to respond. It's just like a little prompt. And I'm like, I don't want to answer that. That's not
Genuine.
genuine. Yeah. It doesn't feel authentic. So do you really want to know? I'm really confused right now. Like, can I just walk by
I'll
and
tell
answer?
you.
Yeah.
You
No, my coworkers have learned to stop asking me that because I will be like, okay, this is actually what's happening. So
Right. Like if you're gonna ask, I'm gonna tell you.
yeah, the filter goes away. I'm like, no, let's go. I'll tell you exactly what's happening in life.
for sure. Well, gosh, should we kind of go ahead and get started with this interview then?
Yeah.
Are you okay that we're recording the video too?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, so we'll go ahead and get started by having you introduce yourself and let us know where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Bryden Carlson-Giving. Oh my gosh, I love that. We just recently got married, so I love the same. I'm like Carlson-Giving now. Yeah, Bryden Carlson-Giving, and I am from Big Lake, Minnesota, and both Zach and I, we live in Buffalo, Minnesota, which is like about 40 minutes west of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Okay. Bryden, for those of us who are just listening, could you give us a visual description of yourself?
Ooh, I love that. I'm a 5'6" dude, dark hair, medium tan skin, maybe, and with the beard, dark beard.
I love it. And it looks like you're wearing like a lavender colored shirt, maybe.
Lavender color shirt, wear my little Apple Watch, my gray joggers.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I'm Rachel Worley Robertson for being
Specific.
I'm wearing a teal colored high-rise tank top that I borrowed from Stephanie.
Yep.
I have my hair pulled back as usual. I'm wearing small hoop earrings, and I'm sitting on a couch right next to Stephanie and Ophelia.
Yeah, and Ophelia, the dog. I'm Stephanie Olszewski. I have red hair that's coming out. It's dyed. It was dyed bright, but now it's coming a little bit lighter now. Some black glasses, my cozy button-down t-shirt from working outside, and a golden retriever that is also very red next to me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Bryden, can you share a little bit about yourself and how you like to spend your time or occupy your time?
Ooh. Share a little about myself. Oh my goodness. Let's see, I am a OTP that supports kiddos in an outpatient pediatric setting, but actually starting next year, I'll be joining the school-based world, which I'm incredibly excited for, to actually like support kids in like, not that the real world isn't the clinic, but also it's not really as much of a real world as the school. So I'm excited to partner with some fantastic people to support learners in the school-based system. Love how I spend my time. I love to read. That's probably one of my like two or three major hyperfixations. I love to read. Like I'm on book number like 37 this year. like all my drives, I'm listening to audiobooks. So I also love collecting vinyls and listening to music. Like if I wasn't doing this wonderful podcast right now, like I literally would be playing a vinyl like right next to me, which I usually like to do because it helps me to focus pretty well. Hypersensitive to auditory input for sure. Yeah, husband, a son. Love to spend time outside as much as possible. Like really, I mean, just kind of like hearing the birds and just being underneath the trees. Like it's so regulatory for me, for sure.
I love hearing you speak like an OT.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you're our first other OT that we're interviewing.
Oh my gosh, like incredibly honored then.
It's a small world of OT, and then even smaller within this realm of like true neurodiversity affirming. So we're very honored and excited to be sharing this space with you as well.
Yeah. Do you mind kind of sharing how, like, because I know Rachel, you didn't hear about OT till undergrad, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind like how you found out about OT and kind of like if you had to describe it? Because most people are like, what's OT? Like your elevator pitch.
I got into OT because it was also undergrad. I actually almost became a kindergarten teacher, but then I really wanted to dabble in healthcare, and I had literally, it's like not a really cool dramatic story like a lot of people were like, my aunt had this like life-saving like occupational therapist that helped her, do the things that are important to her after like this big surgery. Like I literally just Googled into a search engine like healthcare and teaching, and actually occupational therapy was the first thing that popped up. And then I ended up watching a lot of YouTube videos about it. And I knew I wanted to work with kids, and I saw what an OT could do when supporting kiddos. I was like, okay, yeah, this is totally it for me. And then when I got into school and was on fieldwork, I'm like, no, this is absolutely what I really, really want to do. And yeah, and that's the elevator pitch. Oh, what I always like to tell people, because first off, they always will ask me like, oh my gosh, so like you're gonna help my kid like find a job. I'm like, no, we're not doing any of that. And then sometimes too, they'll always will say like, okay, like you're gonna help with their handwriting, and then I always will stop and say, well, actually, like we do anything that is really meaningful for your learner, and it could just because of a lack of great supports, it could be some sort of barrier, but anything that is meaningful to them, or they want to get better at that certain skill, or they want to get more confident in something, there's a high chance that we can address it. And then I usually will let them kind of just like word vomit, like what are the things that you're really concerned about, or what are some things that, like I'll even ask the learner, like, what do you want to get better at? And we'll see if I can help support you in that. High chance we can.
Yeah. I like that. That's a very, also how you framed all that was very strength-based.
Even we're very like intentional with language use, and listening to your TED Talk, you guys really emphasize that as well. So even using the term learner, I don't know, maybe you use kiddo sometimes too, but that's always like, that terminology has always like I don't know, like grind my gears a little bit. But I feel like learning
Yeah.
is so respectful and is so like equal partnership there. So I really like that term learner. And I also really appreciate your like very honest, candid, like, hey, I don't have a great story. I Googled it, because that's so real. And I think we really need to like normalize just like regular, real experiences, right? Because it almost takes away power of like, maybe I'm not as compelling or as important of an OT because I just stumbled into it, but I stumbled into it too. And kind of found passion by accident. And so I think that's as real and cool. So thanks for sharing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course.
So you kind of briefly mentioned that you identify as neurodivergent. Do you kind of
AKA neurodistinct.
Yes.
Do you ever use this term?
So honestly, like I'm really excited to see that, because I think neurodistinct this is like one of the first times I think I've come across neurodistinct.
Yeah. Shoot, I wish we'll have to link it in the show notes, who coined that word, neurodistinct. But yeah, it's kind of, I think it highlights this idea of different, not better, not worse, but distinct. Whereas divergent, in a sense, I mean, we still identify with it, but it does have kind of an ableist undertone, right, of diverging from the norm. And if we're really trying to say like, hey, everyone is equally beautiful and valid, everyone's just different, then distinct kind of feels a little bit more empowering than divergent. So
that's really interesting. I think it'll definitely I think it really like just depends on the listener, because I think for me, like even kind of hearing neurodistinct, I think I even still kind of find neurodivergent even more empowering, only because it's like I do diverge from the norm, and I'm also like pretty damn proud of that. And until my differences are recognized and supported, and other folks' interests and differences are supported, but I also can totally understand and like empathize with like neurodistinct as well too. But that's like the beauty, is like language is powerful, and you get to kind of identify with whatever resonates with you the most, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and it is so nuanced and so individual too. So yeah, I also think language is beautiful and powerful. But anyway, back to the main question of how you identify as neurodivergent. So you can share as much or as little about.
Oh yeah, I would say I would identify. So I use the term ADHD just because people know what that is. But actually, in an ideal world, I hate ADHD. I hate using ADHD. It's better than having ADHD. It's just because deficit and disorder are still in the lingo. So I much prefer. I don't remember at all who coined it, but I freaking loved it. VASTER. So variable attention stimulus trait.
Yes, that's Hollowell, Dr. Hollowell.
Oh gosh, good job. Yeah, VASTER. Like if I could have it my way, and if I said, yeah, I'm a VASTER, like if people knew what that was, I would totally much prefer VASTER, because just like I despise autism spectrum disorder, but like just like ADHD, like disorder, deficit, you're already like you're painting this frame of like who the individual is without even getting to know them first. But yeah, so VASTER, and then I'll even like depression. Like I even like, for me, it feels still most comfortable. Like I have depression because of how it kind of infiltrates throughout my life. And then trauma as well, I would say, like for neurodiversity.
Thank you for sharing. I'm curious, I'm gonna poke a little deeper, but you are more than welcome always. Just I prefer not to share, and that's completely valid too. We always are kind of curious though how people came to identify with neurodivergent, if it's something that they've had throughout their development and growing up, or they came to later in life.
Great. Oh yes, great question. Later in life, I didn't realize I was neurodivergent. Well, I knew that I had depression, but I always thought that like only for a while, because of a lot of the early advocacy when I saw about neurodiversity was only about like autism and ADHD. And so I thought that having depression wasn't a part of that like universe. And then I was diagnosed as a vaster last year, which for me, it helped me to like really exhale because it made so many things about my life really just elucidated so many things that I was always so concerned about, or just like, am I just dumb that I can't like just break my focus and move on to another thing? Or it's like, no, like it's a literal like biological form of like human diversity in the brain. And so all of that was late diagnosed. I was not diagnosed young at all.
So you said about a year ago you received this diagnosis, right? I'm curious again. You can be like, nah, I'm good. But I'm kind of curious what that experience was for you, because I think a lot of individuals who have that late diagnosis can kind of go through like all the stages of grieving, but also validation at the same time. And I'm kind of curious what you'd be willing to share about about how that diagnosis experience was.
Absolutely. So I have been following so many neurodivergent individuals, and they would be posting all this really beautiful stuff about like, here are some fun, like cool screeners that you can take yourself, and self-diagnosis is equally valid. And so I was like, you know what, like I really feel like I feel like I process the world differently. Like I don't know how to like put a finger on it, but then I would take a couple different like tests, and then like one of them was like I forget what it's like there's not really a neurodiversity affirming like ADHD or screener, but there was one that was, I have to find it. It was highly publicized. That had a lot more affirming language, and I took it, and like I came out and I was answering these questions like, do you feel like you have like sensory processing differences with X, Y, or Z? And I'm like, yes, I do. And then, do you feel like that you can like focus on a task for such a long time that you forget to go to the bathroom, you forget to eat? I'm like, yes, I can. I do that all the time. And I'm like doing all these things. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Like, or like, do you feel like you have really, do you feel like you have, your short-term memory isn't as fantastic as other people's? I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, this is speaking to me. And so actually, like, after I took like this screener, then I did a formal assessment, and I got my diagnosis. For me, actually, like, I don't know, I feel like I was really privileged that there was no grieving. Like for me, actually, like, I feel like like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, because I felt like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just your brain is wired differently, and really, like, it's in front of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And I kind of want to touch back on this idea that you had about like there not really being neurodiversity affirming screeners. And that's kind of true across the board for neurodivergent conditions. And I think that plays a really big role in why so many of us are missed, right? It's like,
Totally.
Yeah, in a big way, we have these ableist undertones, whether we acknowledge them or not, or are aware of them or not. And so we don't want to identify with being disordered and deficit. And so being able to just word it differently makes it more accessible and makes us like be able to reflect more honestly. So that's definitely an area of need in the field for sure. Should we share a little bit with him? Because I always feel like we're just like, be vulnerable with us. Very good. Continue.
No, I'm loving it. No, obviously this is your podcast, and I'm honored to hear anything that you both would like to share too. I mean, but obviously you're the captains of this ship.
For sure. Do you want to start? Or?
I think you should start. I'm kind of curious where you're.
Oh, okay.
I'll jump onto the train.
Yeah, who knows where this ship is going, right?
I was gonna say sometimes Rachel's ship.
That's okay.
You're following along, like no, but I'll listen.
Yeah.
No, so Stephanie and I started Diverge Community Services 7 months ago.
Oh yes, okay, now I know what we're talking about. Yes, okay.
And when we first started, we were both very passionate about neurodiversity. We had been working with individuals with mental health conditions and who were autistic, and TBI and various neurodivergencies, but it was all like very siloed, looking at a specific disorder diagnosis, right? And how can we rehabilitate? And so her and I like had this very I mean, super hyper focus, hyper fixation level interest in all of this stuff and sensory processing and executive functioning and whatever. And we're like, this just isn't it here. Like, we are operating out of this medical rehabilitation model that is just
like very biomechanical focused.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was hard, especially we were part of like an NFL program too, where we're not really focusing on that and trying to find out more strength-based approaches and stuff. And we're like, this is kind of where our passions align.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were part of like this mental health. It was like a 30-day residential mental health program.
Mhm.
And we really got to explore like what mental health strength-based OT could look like and the real impact that could have. So just all these different things got us like really interested in this world. But basically we got out of our situation out of necessity. Like our previous jobs just wasn't
Serving us.
it.
Yeah,
It was
wasn't serving us.
serving us.
Yeah. Or sometimes the people, we would say like we need more needs and there's more like just support that's needed that was lacking.
So we knew we wanted to do this, explore this model of neurodiversity affirming for adults, because it's just like adults are just, there's just this cliff of services, right? But like personally, Stephanie, and I'm gonna reveal some of your stuff by saying mine, but
yeah,
Stephanie has been very open ever since I've known her about her ADHD vastness and her dyslexia and how she deeply identifies with that, and like it's her strength in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I've been open in like grad school and stuff because that's where we met originally, was in grad school. Where I'm like, hey, by the way, like all my papers are gonna be spelled wrong. Like, don't it, you know, just kind of upfront with it. And even like at our job interview before, you know, coming forward into the interview meeting saying like, hey, my written reports, there's going to be misspellings, but I hope you know what the vestibular system, like, you know, in general, what I'm getting at when I'm sending this information to someone. But yeah, I would say I've always been upfront since I was little, because I was diagnosed when I was, I would say like first grade. They kind of knew in preschool and kindergarten, and then first grade I officially got that. Like, all right, yeah, we got some learning differences here. So
yeah, and Stephanie's openness with it and her ability to embrace her differences and really find new ways of doing things and seeing the world was just really inspiring to me. But when we first started this company, I didn't identify as being neurodivergent, and so there was this lens of like, what value can I bring as a neurotypical? Well, funny story is I too didn't realize that mental health was deeply tied in this world of neurodiversity. And I have had obsessive compulsive disorder since I was a little kid. And so that is something that I'm like, oh wait, I guess I am neurodivergent. But through this process of really diving deeply in, have identified that I am actually probably OC RUDHD. I don't know how to say that, but I'm identifying as autistic as well. And it's been a wild, like crazy journey of being like, oh no, I'm neurotypical. So like, no, you don't even know what neurotypical is, Rach. Yeah. So it's been kind of this wild journey of self-discovery. And the funny thing, I think it's funny, I think Stephanie thinks it's funny, is Stephanie's like, listen, you had to come to it on your own terms, but I've known all along. Like, I'm just like, I'm gonna let you get there. But so yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Oh my goodness, thank you for sharing, you two. I had no idea.
Yeah. So
but it's just cool how even as professionals, like mental health care professionals, how we don't really realize it, you know, until we're kind of in the thick of things.
Yeah.
And so.
And if like we don't even know, and we went through a master's program, like we learned about autism.
I know.
You know, we don't, neurodiversity affirming wasn't even, that's not something that was in our program at all, right? It was autism spectrum disorder. It's a person with autism, you know.
We maybe got like 2 classes about like sensory processing and whatnot.
It's also like, I mean, I don't know about you, like all my education was very much like, you know, like autism spectrum disorder it's like painting like this really big like negative picture of like all these things to like be afraid of and like these things we need to correct. And it's like, oh wait, but I could never be affiliated with anything like that because it's this big scary thing that we need to like change. And I'm really looking forward to learning how even just our education can change. I mean, there's so much that our occupational therapy education needs to be better about, but neurodiversity is like top 3 that needs to change for that very reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or like strength-based too. I love how you mentioned it in
Mhm.
your TED Talk and giving examples of specific goals and stuff too, because
Yeah.
so much, especially for insurance purposes, we like are taught specifically how to write goals for the deficit. And then when we are talking to individuals on what like we're working on, and you like say, oh, this is your goal, and I wrote it like as a deficit, it almost just brings this, I don't know, demeaning type thing.
No, it makes them like less human, and
Yeah.
it really makes you forget about the humanness of the individual that you're working with. And it's still something like I'm still working on. Like I've only have learned about strengths-based approaches in this past like year and a half, and it's still like I'll be typing up like an eval, like, oh wait, Bride, like that's pretty gross. Like we need to go back and reframe that in a way like you think like it's an ever-changing process though. That's why it's not like a single time of like, okay, I no longer have any internalized ableism. I no longer have to reflect on how I practice. Like, no, it's like every day, like reflect on what you're doing. Don't be afraid to like check yourself. Don't be afraid to have other people, call you out. And because I know I rely on that. Like, oh, thank you for telling me. Like, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it in your TED Talk. You're like, it's okay to be wrong. Like, it's, it's okay to learn from you being wrong. That's fine.
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
What's we're big fans of Dr. Patton.
Yeah.
I think she's a goddess.
Yeah. She is. She really is. But her saying, what is it? Be wrong, do better, learn something. You probably know it. But
From her Eleanor Clegg
Nagel lecture. Yeah, I'm like, shit, getting that tattooed. Like everybody by that.
My favorite one is no one builds their lives off of remediated deficits. And I'm like, thanks, girl. You're so right. Like that's so true though. No one builds off their life off of remediated deficits. And it's just I'm hoping to actually I just sent out an email this past week. Her and a couple other of neurodivergent OTs, we're gonna write 2 dreams. We're gonna write, there's a big neurodiversity call for papers out. We're gonna write an article. Oh my god, my larger dream is, so I don't know if you've read recently, AOTA, the American Occupational Therapy Association for non-OT listeners, our big national organization for American OTs. They released like in January, like recently January, like a position, this like long position.
You're good. We
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't even apologize.
No, oh my god. They posted this like 20-page long position paper on how OTs can support autism spectrum disorder across the lifespan, and like the entire thing is so ableist and disgusting. Like I'm like, did you not like team up with or collaborate or even ask for advice from your autistic OTs?
No.
And it's like the authors AOTA, like it's like they recommend all these behavioral modification techniques, and the icing on the cake, the disgusting cake that made me so livid is that they have case studies. The only time they ever mentioned neurotypical, they don't mention neurodiversity at all. They mention in this case study about an autistic adult woman who's working on like her sexual relationships with her partner. And it's like one of the goals is like one of her like fake quotes is like, I want my sexual relationship with my partner to be more like a neurotypical. It's like, oh my God, there's so much wrong with this. And so I really want to partner with them to come up with like basically it's like a feedback.
Yeah.
Like basically us rewriting it and saying, hey, AOTA, this is how you can like improve upon it and publish it within the open journal, because that needs to like, it was so I was so embarrassed.
And that's our national, like that's supposed to be our national.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right, that sets the precedent.
Sorry,
That should, right? You know,
My intestines just dropped. I think at least just a little.
Yeah, it really reminds me, like, yeah, I surround myself on social media with so many fantastic, pioneering people, but it's like really like it's my bubble, and I forget really like how really truly how much farther our profession really needs to get to. Like for me and my friends and colleagues and stuff, it's the norm, but holy buckets, we're like the 15% right now, you know. But it was a good reminder for me, like a good like reality check. Like, whoa.
well, I am so excited to read this because I know your dream's going to come a reality.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. And if you need any input,
Oh,
this world,
cool.
I'd be happy to contribute to it anyway. But
Yeah.
you know, I haven't read this article yet, which is shocking to me because I would definitely remember reading this. But there was a decent OT article in AJAT, actually out of Western Michigan University. I think it was late 2022, but talking about, and it was comparing traditional occupational therapy with neurodiversity-affirming OT. I'm sure in your research you're like, yeah, I've read that, but are you familiar with what article I'm talking about?
Honestly, I don't think so. I'm kind of done with like the literature review phase. I was like end of 2021, so I probably completely missed it.
It's good. It does a side-by-side comparison of like, hey, these are traditional kind of behavioralist approach. This is the strengths-based approach. And shockingly, it's not Dr. Catton. It was out of Western Michigan. So like whoever this is, I'm like, we should get them too. Because it was really direct and profound. Like, this is harmful. This is what we've done in the past. This is a step in the right direction.
I'm gonna like write this down really quick before I forget.
Yeah, Western Michigan.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's short, but it's like.
Oh my God, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm gonna read your 22-page one and throw up later. So
yeah.
Not a tasty pig.
That's just sad because I don't know, our profession was founded on mental health and things that someone enjoys and you know that they're already naturally good at. How do we steer so far away when our foundation of our tree is from here?
Honestly, I've been thinking about that, and for me, and I think this is I think the most largest ableist undertone is that there's this very not just westernized, but this very like microscopic view of like what healthy mental health looks like.
Yeah.
And so it only kind of like looks like this one way. And so I don't know, I feel like our profession was really built upon. And I was even like reading a lot of, oh my gosh, I just read this recent article about how like the origins of OT weren't super fantastic. It was pretty like racist and very ableist actually. We just have a lot of work to do. And so I'm really hopeful. I know it sounds like a really depressing podcast, but a lot of hope, you know.
But I think we have to take that approach and that framework of we made mistakes and we're gonna learn.
And like be okay with saying we did make them. Like don't try to hide them. Like don't delete these articles. Like I know AOT deleted a lot of their autistic like research articles that were like they were emphasizing like behavioral techniques and behavioral based feeding. It's like that was a critically praised topic you've had on forever. And now it's just gone. So, you know, like I wish they would issue like an apology statement or totally agree.
No, because that's just trying to erase history instead of actually from it.
Yeah, I mean, I know we keep going back to your TED Talk, but sorry, like you're claiming.
No, I'm sorry.
You know what? We're so Midwest. We're not sorry about anything. We are just people doing our thing.
That's so true.
But we both just so appreciated you coming right off the bat and being like, hey, here's all the things that I did that were really harmful and I'm still learning.
Oh God, yeah.
Like that's so brave, right? But it's such a good modeling for the rest of us to like acknowledge, because like if we can't acknowledge that we're wrong, we don't want to learn or change. But when Stephanie first disclosed to me her ADHD, I had this very narrow ableist view of what ADHD was. And autism, like had I really understood what autism could look like in women, you know, maybe I wouldn't have been almost 30 when I'm finally kind of starting to understand myself, right? But I like autistic, like sounded like a dirty word to me. I mean, you know,
this has been like a recent, I would say even 2 months that you kind of started to identify.
Oh, that's really cool, Rachel.
Very early baby.
Yeah. So even
still beautiful.
Just even our talks like 3 months ago, almost exactly.
Wow.
Which was like, it was so easy to identify, like, oh yeah, I can see I have ADHD, because like, oh sure, you know, but autistic, you know, it automatically like I have this view that I'm not human almost, and that's so it like you know, and the fact that you were vulnerable and like said like that is just the view that I've been like society has put on what an autistic human looks like, is just so this lens that
and I don't think like you can really, so many of our implicit biases are implicit, right? We don't know them, but that was such a real vulnerable wake-up call for me of being like, I wouldn't have thought that I had this ableist view. Like I'm compassionate towards everyone, and of course I would think all of my clients are equally important and human, but then throw that shit on yourself and you're like, that's when you start coming out, and you're like, well, if that were true, if that's truly how I felt, this would be a welcome addition to my life. This would be something to celebrate. But instead it's something that is like this really challenging, like coming out situation I'm having in my life. And that's not always met with like positive experiences either, you know? So,
or even being vulnerable and telling people they're like autistic. No, you're not a little boy.
The best ones though are like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but what do you think autism is? And how do I make sense about that, right? Because if your idea of what autism is, you know what I mean? Like, what is your idea? Because it's so, I'm not Rain Man. Is that your idea?
Yeah.
But also how pivotal Rain Man was. I mean, like people didn't even really know what autism was before that. So, I mean, it is a starting place. So it's not something we should erase from our history either. It's like, you know.
Oh, I think we can definitely acknowledge, you know, like what it was for, you know, the culture, and then also like how we move forward since then. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, especially at the time when it came out, and I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't alive back then. I think it came out in like the late 80s, but you know, I've heard a thing or two. And so what do you wish more neurotypical folks understood about neurodiversity? I mean, you said it right. We are in this bubble where we just assume, oh, everyone understands and appreciates it, but we're not.
I think for me, the largest thing is that actually neurotypicality is a part of like the neurodiversity umbrella, because it's everyone, it's encompassing everyone, and it's just about valuing. And this is why there's also like a fun, like lingering question in the back of my head, like truly, really, is there any like, is there neurotypicality? Is there neurodivergence? Or is just like this kind of disgusting medical model ableist stuff that we're drowning in that makes us, you know, view life as only correct in one certain way. But that neurotypicality, like they're a part of like the club, they're a part of the universe too. I always like to like, I know when I tell my neurotypical friends about that, how they're like, yeah, you're a part of neurodiversity too. Like it's not only just a movement, it's a whole stinking big massive universe, and you're included. And they're like, oh yeah. So I always like reminding them about that.
If you have a brain, you're a part of the neurodiversity.
Yeah,
you have a brain.
Matter.
Yeah.
Should matter. Oh man, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm just gonna say it, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But this idea of, does neurotypicality exist? That is something that I have been racking my brain around for some time now, because you know, I feel like I'm in this privileged place of becoming more in tune with my identity and having support to, you know, there's a lot of privilege in it, but in this process, it's making me feel like, okay, I'm just maybe more in tuned or more aware of some of the nuance than other people are. May not mean as much that I'm like so different from others, but have the language to explore this. So that's something I've been, I don't know, that's that's kind of a thought too. And I had an interview with another individual, fantastic interview with Benani from Black Neurodiversity. And they
I
said,
recommend listening to it.
they said that neurotypicality doesn't exist, but rather it's, remember the quote about, I don't want to say it wrong. So I'm just gonna say, listen to that episode, because it was very profound and it has really got me thinking about the basis of.
I really want to actually interview, their pronouns they, them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I just like recently discovered them. Actually, I think it was because of your podcast that I discovered them. I discovered Black Neurodivergent, and actually I want to reach out to them because I really want their input on this like framework model thing. That's like a sliver of like my projects. That's just one area of mine that I really need more, so much more support in. But
That was an amazing conversation. And what I really, really respected about that conversation was their comfort with discomfort and just, you know, really, really challenging a lot of things that we just take for granted and as the norm. Like, well, but why? But why? So I highly recommend reaching out. They're super accessible and very good people.
Yeah.
Very good people. So we've already been talking for 43 minutes, and I'll be honest, halfway through I forgot we were doing a podcast. I was just so excited to talk to you.
oh yeah, likewise for real. This has been so lovely.
But we haven't gotten to talk about your research at all. Do you have any spoons left to talk about it, or should we do another one?
You're so sweet. I'm more than happy to talk about it. It's long story short, I'm creating, it's essentially like it's a neurodiversity affirming toolkit for OTPs. And so if I share my screen, will it pop up? Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Oh my God. Okay.
Now I'm scared that I won't.
So I created like an introductory manual that I'm just gonna basically share on social media as like a, hey, this is what's gonna be coming out hopefully as like a website someday in the future.
That is so exciting. Okay, we just allowed it, so you should be able to share now.
Oh.
Stop, it's so nice. Oh my God. I'm a huge like illustrator too. So like I was like, I really want to like create like this like annoyingly like creative, dark, but like watercolor, hopeful graphic. And I painted like the little watercolor. But okay, that's the boring stuff. Still boring. I basically talk about how occupational therapists, I shouldn't say accidentally, but they contribute to occupational marginalization by not supporting neurodivergent ways of being as valid occupations, and how enforcing like neurotypical norms, and even like our assessments are disgusting, like how we encourage occupational marginalization and how we cannot stop talking about that. So I'm just going to get to the actual like just the listing of the toolkit stuff.
I don't know near enough occupational marginalization. I can't wait to read this.
That's gonna be your next deep dive.
So,
yeah.
So essentially within the toolkit, I created like a really, really rough draft of like a neurodiversity affirming OT model. I created like a grading of very popular interventions that are used with, a lot of my research is very focused on autistic individuals. I would love to like obviously expand it. So like, for example, I did like a massive lit review collecting all the health and well-being priorities identified by autistic people, no one else but autistic people. And like, surprise, surprise, none of their priorities were lie in the medical model. The only one that you can like maybe argue lies in the medical model is pain, but that also means including how we modifying how we measure pain, because autistic people measure pain very differently than neurotypical people. And like how like starting with our goal, like if we're gonna write goals, like really try to start from like these priorities instead of kind of like our ableist assumptions. Oh yeah, here's like a really, really rough draft. Still working on a title, but the promoting authentic neurodivergent occupational performance panel model. essentially it's just
As you're making
creating
a
like
model. Sorry.
oh it was just a fun like idea that I had when I was like buzzed like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But like how it's supporting like authentic like neurodivergent like health and well-being, and like our goal is like neurodivergent sense of self and empowering that. And so like I envision like on the website like this model will be floating and you can like hover above each section. Like the first step is reflection on ableism. Like here are some like tests that you can take that were created by neurodivergent people to like measure any internalized ableism you have, or maybe help you reflect on things. And then like meaningful evaluation. So like I have like in a section, gosh, I'm sorry, this is my ADHD or brain.
Oh, I love it. No.
All the
like,
colors,
like
so satisfying.
oh, I'm such a visual dude. It's like, yeah, if you're going to use an assessment tool, like here are some of like the more like affirming assessment tools. Here's like a grading of popular OT interventions from like low grade of incorporating affirming characteristics to like high grade. Here, like stop, like don't even consider unless for some reason, like an autistic friend, like I put here like social skills training. I'm so sorry, you probably can't even see it. But like they were like, oh my God, they like raised a really great point. They're like, well, Bryden, just always remember too that there's a lot of autistic people out there that want to learn neurotypical social skills as a way of like safety and protecting themselves. I'm like, oh, that's such a great point. And so then like, yeah, neurodiversity-affirming treatment characteristics. So like this entire project, of course, Christy Patton, the goddess witch. Like so like this doctoral project will be like 200 like 50 pages long. This is just like a cute like little introductory to it all, but like the end goal is to essentially turn this all into a interactive website, like a resource hub. So it's like you'll have Sarah from like the deaf autistic OT stuff, like, oh, if you want to target how to promote affirming independence in like ADLs, like here's OTs for neurodiversity, like supports and resources. You click on it, it'll bring it to like their page. Or you want to support co-regulation, here's some of my favorite autism level up resources. Like, so it's like a resource hub. So like none of the stuff will be housed there. I want all attraction to like go to like the actual websites. But we just have so many websites with fantastic information without like a
show where
yeah, kind of like a train station. Or
yeah.
if you're about to assess a neurodivergent kiddo, you can click on assessment and it'll be like, hey, here are some screeners to consider. This is what they measure. Here are some like questions you could consider asking that are really affirming, things to think about. And so this is like a really rough like dream. This is kind of like what my project is entailing.
Oh, I'm excited to see this dream coming reality.
God, me too. Me too. And you know, gosh, we judge ourselves so much. You saying this is really rough, that looks so beautifully polished and like it's so much, you can tell it's so much clearer than you're giving yourself credit for. But this is gonna be something that is really valuable for us. So I'm like, go Bryden, go. It's gonna be awesome. Really, really exciting stuff. It's even cooler than I realized it was going to be. So,
and thank you for sharing it. Yeah. And thank you for
yeah. I haven't shared this like PDF yet. I'm always like, I'm probably gonna share it not until like August when I actually like publish like the doctoral project and it's like actually available and have more of like an idea. Like maybe PanUp won't be like the name of the model. I'm just kind of just playing around with things right now. But that's why I'm consulting with so many OTs right now. Like I've consulted with quite a few different neurodivergent OTs, like, hey, this is I feel like I'm missing something, like, please tell me. And because a couple of the underlying frameworks, like cultural humility and intersectionality and anti-racism, like I'm a cisgender white dude, like I'm privileged to the max in those areas. And so like I'm looking forward to consulting with like non-white OTs. And so I'm super, super excited.
This is amazing.
I'm jealous of all the cool stuff that you're doing right now and how your brain is just like,
what are you talking about? What about this podcast? I think this podcast, and like I was just looking at your website like a little bit before I like launched on, like you both are doing such remarkable stuff.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you can tell it was a ADHD just impulse. We quit our jobs and started a company because we just were like, yeah,
Well done.
we don't like how the medical model is being forced upon us, and people are being treated fairly or rightly. So let's just start a company and change it. 7 months later.
That takes loads amounts of bravery. I don't even think I could do anything like that anytime near in the future. So kudos to you both.
Bravery and a lot of privilege.
Yeah.
And a lot of but you know what? I think that neurotypical people rarely make history because you have to have that level of bravery and a little bit of impulsivity
and hyperfixation,
creativity to the max to be able to think you can and actually do these kinds of things. So I think it is a skill and a gift and something that we want to contribute as much as we can to the profession and just the world at large. So we are fighting the same good fight with you, my good friend. So
yeah.
Fantastic. I see we're coming to a close and I never know how to close anything I do.
We always do this horrible salute at the end.
Why did we do
We don't
that?
know how to say goodbye or anything. But I think I'm excited for you to publish this research and I want to hear more about it. I think we'll have another interview with you soon.
I would love to do another interview or just a chat. It doesn't have to be an interview. Just consult with you.
Honored.
How do you feel? I'm guessing we shouldn't include your chat about your research actually in the episode.
Oh, I'm super chill. Like I don't mind at all. It's so kind of you to ask, but
okay, we don't have a
happy to.
So
it's all good.
We will be at that point, so it'd be cool.
Actually, it'll be published when we actually do have more than, but still 500 listeners is still 500 random people from all over the world. So this is true.
Yeah, this is true. Well, thank you so much for spending the beginning of your Friday evening with us. It's been really so lovely getting to chat with you.
Likewise, when I got the Instagram message that you both were like, oh my gosh, we would love to interview. I'm like, oh my God, why? Thank you. I'm like, sure. I think that's really cool because I feel, just kind of like what you spoke about. I think it's just, it's so easy to kind of forget, these conversations are so fantastic and no underselling and it's one of the many things I'm still working on. But no, it's just so lovely. Thank you. Times infinity.
No, you're still doing honestly profession changing work here. If we all, let's be honest, it's profession changing.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the profession in general is more neurodiverse affirming within the next decade.
Yeah.
And it started with your TED Talk and stuff. More people are aware of it now because of it. So thank you, honestly.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's chat again sometime soon because I feel like you're my bud now. But that's
oh my gosh, I love that. I love it so much. I already have friend crushes on the both of you. I just want you both to like me so bad. Oh my goodness.
We posted a little Instagram reel about us getting ready for you. We tagged you in it so you can see our little.
What?
Yeah, we did. Just before we started, just like us.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm excited to see. Oh, this is so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel, Stephanie. I really appreciate it.
Give your animals and your husband a hug for us.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Oh, the small streak of
mini.
Oh, yeah. And that's
You both have a fantastic weekend. Again, I know I've said it a million times, but I truly am honored to have shared virtual space with you both. And I'm really proud of the work that you both are doing as well. I look forward to collaborating and working with you both in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I have to salute or else it wouldn't be proper. Bye, Bryden. Good night.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Neurodivergent Voices. Interested in an interview? Email divergecs@gmail.com to get it scheduled.